Hello, Dr. Carrie Hepburn here. In a previous video, I was talking about how through my work with Compass PD and my colleagues and I have been working with districts on creating long-range plans that are systematic, um, plans that look at the curriculum cycle and look at a professional learning cycle and think about all of the big rocks that we need to keep in mind in our schools and our districts and make sure that that's happening like in a cyclical manner. Okay, so that we aren't forgetting to continue to retouch and rebuild and hit on things that you aren't doing like professional learning community training 10 years ago and now you're like, why aren't we using professional learning communities? That happens all the time. So know that's a predictable problem unless you intentionally plan. So what I want to do is talk you through a process that I do when I first start meeting with districts and my colleagues do. And it's called finding the sweet spot. And so I'm going to switch to my dot cam, which those of you that have been around me know that this is something I use all the time. And so when we start talking about the sweet spot, the first thing that we do is we start with best practices. And so we just create this circle of best practices and we list out just like all kinds of best practices that we know. Okay, it's going to be as comprehensive as you can make it, but it's not going to have all the things. Okay, so like PLCs, instructional methods, it could be like inquiry, it could be comprehensive literacy, it could be blended learning, any of those things. It could be like instructional strategies, strategies, so think like Marzano, classroom instruction at work, it could be like MTSS, all those things, right? Those are best practice. And this world is just such a beautiful place to live. If we could all live in the best practice world, wouldn't it just be lovely? So if I could spend all the time that I needed in reading or in writing, or in math or in science and social studies, it would be lovely. But the reality is, as educators, our schools and our teachers, our districts have other things that we need to keep in mind as well. And so another space that we need to think of are the district initiatives. And district initiatives are good as well. Initiatives, right? They're not like bad things. And many times they align with best practices. Sometimes they don't, like sometimes it's just to kind of for compliance or whatever, but many times they do align with best practices. So a lot of district initiatives that I'm seeing right now are people are rebooting PLCs, and that would go here, right? So like PLCs, a lot of people are trying to do their MTSS work. Many are working on developing proficiency scales. Some are starting work on priority standards or power standards, depending where you live. Seeing lots of social emotional learning taking place in districts, right? All great things. And then we also have this other area that is, I call accountability. Accountability is not a bad thing either. I mean, I can tell you if I wasn't held accountable by somebody, I probably wouldn't be at the gym all the time or working out. Or if I wasn't held accountable by my writing coach, I can tell you that my book would not be progressing. You know, it would be very easy for me to kind of let some of that stuff go by the wayside. And that's not a bad thing either. So accountability is not a bad thing. Some of the things I think about that we have regarding accountability are screeners. We have priority standards, standard assessments. Many people have that. We have high stakes assessments. We also have like evaluations, right? Walkthrough forms, those kind of things to see if like what are we looking for? Those kinds of things. So all of those things, not bad things. But when you look at all of these individual things, it can feel like we're when we're talking to our staff about it, like we're adding one more thing, right? And it's really overwhelming. And it's like you keep adding more things, but what are you taking away? And so what we do when we're working with districts is this, is we try to align the work that we're doing in this space right here. And this space here is what I call the sweet spot. So with this particular district, what we're going to do based on our work and our conversations is that we're going to develop a plan that aligns comprehensive literacy. I'm going to go up here. Oops, sorry guys. Literacy begins PLC work. And in year one, we're focusing on questions 1 and 2, right? So we're gonna, with comprehensive literacy, we're gonna talk about best practices when it comes to literacy instruction. And we're going to create a progression. What I didn't put on here is that district is starting Fountas and Pinnell classroom. And so their program doesn't have like the kind of learning progressions that would be easily like placed, or they don't feel like that would be placed in a classroom. And so we are going to create a progression with them. And through that, and some best practices that we're going to do, also extra best practices, not only comprehensive literacy and PLC work, but we're going to do some of their priority standard work, okay? And in their priority standard work, we're going to unpack those standards. We're going to align the priority standards to their resource. We're going to create a progression, and then teachers are going to be able to use that for PLC questions 1 and 2. And then when which we'll talk more about later, but when we're developing the plan, we're developing a plan that shows teachers how we can use PLCs. We can do instructional methods, F&P, proficiency scales, priority standards. Actually, I shouldn't say proficiency scales. We're in the beginning stages of proficiency scales. It's going to take a couple of years for us to get there. But as we start those progressions, that's going to help. We're going to be able to help them with their priority standards, and then be able to show them how it aligns with their high stakes assessments. So we're checking many of the big rocks off the list. And actually this will even help with MTSS. And as we're talking about comprehensive literacy, we'll go into some strategies, instructional strategies work as well. And so showing teachers how this all works together, and it feels thoughtful. And so when we start doing this work with our districts, they feel empowered and excited. And this is just the beginning. So stay tuned. Tomorrow, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk with you about starting with the why in Simon Sinek's work. Have a great day.